Welcome back, everybody. I'm sweating to death, so this might be a short one, to say the least. But in any case, I am smoking my pipe. I have the microphone on the clip because I use the Rode Wireless Go system. And this is kind of not the lav like I had last video. This is just, and I think this might work a little bit better because it doesn't seem like I'm peaking. It seems to be a good balance. Of course, my shirt's hanging off, but you know what? At this point, I might even just strip because it's so friggin' hot in this shed. I had the door open a little bit, but the dog next door decided to bark and cause a stink, so I just closed the door. So I will be melting as I speak to all of you. So enjoy me melting. And smoking a pipe. Probably not the best thing to do either when it's hot. So, I tried to do a video earlier today on what we're about to talk about, but it came out horrible because the dog was barking. I did it late. I got up late. I didn't get to do my typical coffee chat that I wanted to do. Granted, there's only one video, but that was my envision, and I get distracted, so my thoughts were kind of jumbled. Not that they're really concise when I do this anyway, but they were worse than what they normally are. So I woke up late. I got a horrible sleep. My back hurts. I'll be lucky if I can get out of this chair, to be honest. So see how that goes. Well, you won't see it. I might be on the floor sweating to death and melting to death at the end of the night. Anyway, I was also late because I watched a YouTube video from my friend who does the true crime podcast. I'll leave the link below, and I don't know why I said that. I should have just said I'll leave the links in the description, which sounds better. But anyway, she did it on Craig Price, who is one of the rare serial killers Rhode Island actually has or had. And I remember when this happened, I was just a few years younger than him, because he was a child when a teen when he killed. But anyway, enough about that. I'll get into that in a second, but I wanted to mention, I'd mentioned serial killers as a thing with me, like I'm interested in it. People like true crime and that, but I like specifically serial killers. It's not that I admire them. I think they're pieces of crap. However, I am intrigued by the broken mind. And why they are the way they are. So let me go back in time. So Craig Price committed his first murder in '87. In that murder, nobody knew a serial killer did it or anything. It was a horrific murder, and nobody knew anything. 1988. He wasn't arrested until '89, but in 1988, in between that murder and whatnot, there was the New Bedford Highway murders, which I've mentioned, I think, in my intro or in one of the videos I'd mentioned it. That case kind of sparked my whole intrigue into serial killers, and the other it all kind of meshed together to get my curiosity going. And at the same time, I remember watching a miniseries about Jack the Ripper starring Michael Caine. I don't know if any of you saw that, if you were old enough. I was around, I think, 10, 11, 12, around there, that age. And of course, I was getting into Sherlock Holmes as well, which is a story from maybe later in the week, a video. So I was intrigued by this everything that's going on. And then in the fall of '89, I believe, because the highway murders had pretty much stopped, but they kept finding bodies, I think mostly in '89, if I remember right. Sorry, I'm sweating. Ugh. So there was a lot going on there. So Craig Price gets arrested after he commits another murder in '89. I think it was '89 or '88. He committed a brutal murder of a mother and her two daughters. No, I think the oldest was 10, and the youngest was maybe 7 or something like that. It was awful. And I suggest you listen to her podcast where she talks about it. She goes in pretty good detail for someone that's not from Rhode Island. She'd mentioned I like what she does on her show because she talks about like when he was born, what was going on. She does this for every episode she does, kind of get a sense of what it was like back then, and during the crimes as well. And of course, she abruptly stopped because he committed his first crime at 13, and he was still basically a child. And that's the frightening thing with this case with him, is he was a child and he committed his murder. And then his second murder, he was a little older, 15. Had they not caught this guy, I couldn't imagine what he would have done going forward. She cites that in her thing, and this is something that got lost on me, and it might have got lost on me and many people in Rhode Island because we were all worried about him getting out because the law was set up where he was tried. He couldn't be tried as an adult, so at age 21, I believe, he would have been released, his records would have been sealed, and no one would be the wiser technically legally. Granted, we all knew who he was and all that, but technically legally, then nothing could have been done. So we were all worried about that. But he had cited that racism was the reason he did what he did. I don't buy that. I think it was a stressor and a trigger, because she mentions a report, I think from Harvard, which I'm going to have to ask her where she got it, because I'm curious. I'd like to read it, because it's something I never even thought of. Like, I figured stressors as in mom and dad are abusive, or one's abusive, or your siblings are, or maybe being poor, or something like that. But I never thought, I don't know why, it just never dawned on me, at least with this case. So I was intrigued by that. So I'm going to have to get in touch with her and ask her about that. I think this is just the way he was. If you listen to her show, she mentions how he joined a gang. I don't know how much that really was, because in the 80s, there weren't many gangs in Rhode Island, other than the mob up on the hill over here, but she says a neighborhood gang, but I guess you could call my neighborhood, the group of guys I hung out with, a gang as well. I don't know. So that, I'm a little, I don't know, maybe. I don't know. Because he grew up in Buttonwoods, Warwick, Rhode Island, which is pretty middle class, run-of-the-mill type of neighborhood, like mine, very much like mine. My neighborhood growing up in Cumberland. So yeah, I think he was just programmed and destined to be this. But as she mentions in her podcast, he was stalking and breaking and entering. It's almost like he was grooming himself. It reminded me of like BTK and the Golden State Killer kind of thing. Like, this is just leading into in that type of way. So it's very interesting. I can't imagine if they never have caught him, what would have happened. I mean, he was disorganized, so had he actually put more thought into his crimes, he would have been pretty formidable. I mean, he was brutal. I mean, what he did to these women and these children it was horrible. I remember there was a gentleman that used to work with me who was there the night it happened, the Heaton murder was there. He was on scene, and it was just, ugh. I mean, it was awful. But, yeah, so that was my morning. So with serial killers, that's something I'm going to bring on the channel every now and then. I'm going to discuss some serial killers because it's something that intrigues me. Again, not because I admire them. I think these people are awful. It's just I'm so curious about the human mind, not just with serial killers, but like people that are geniuses and how they see the world compared to normal, everyday people like you and I. I don't know, maybe there's a genius watching. So yeah, I think he was just destined to be this way. There's nothing that you could not rehabilitate him. And thankfully, he's I don't think he's the smartest guy in the world. I think he's very emotional and, I mean, he plots a little bit. I'll give him that. Like, he does plan things out, but he gets himself into trouble. He can't help himself. And he got in trouble several times. I remember when growing up, we were all kind of, she calls him in her podcast, she talks about a moment in his first victim where he's watching over her as she's sleeping, like Michael Myers. And to be honest, growing up, he was the boogeyman. He was the Shape. He was Michael Myers. We were pretty terrified that he was going to get out. So he was. We'd all, and I remember me, because I'm only, I think, 3 years younger than him. And my sister, he's as old as my sister. And it was just frightening that he could get out, and, it was crazy. So for a long time we thought that. But he got in trouble. He got an extended sentence, kept extending it and whatnot. And now he moved to a Florida penitentiary several years ago. It was recent. I can't remember when, if it was early 2000s or like 2014 or something like that. I think maybe. So he moved down there, and he ended up stabbing another inmate. And there's a video of it. I'll probably leave a link in the description for you guys to look at it. It's pretty brutal, just so be warned. He's in a wheelchair. Looks like he's faking that he's got an ailment or some kind, and he goes into the cell and just starts mercifully just stabbing and whatnot. And the guy survives, surprisingly. But you can only imagine when he was in his prime, when he was 13, 15, and he killed those people, how brutal that must have been. It's just crazy. But I definitely recommend go listen to her podcast. If you're into serial killers or why they do what they do. She does a really good job. So this is something I'll talk about, like I said, on the channel from time to time. Maybe once a month I'll do a serial killer video. If you don't like that, well, sorry. I'm sure I'll come up with another video you guys will like. I hope. I hope you like any of these videos that I've done. What is this, 12 or 13? I got some new stuff to show. Probably tomorrow I'll do that, not tonight. It's kind of a downer episode a little bit when you're talking about a serial killer. Not very positive. But hopefully the audio wasn't bad. I noticed on the monitor, and I apologize if I'm looking like that off to the side. It's because I'm checking the monitor to see the audio levels. Because this camera that I'm using is, I'd have to put it in manual to change the audio levels to where it probably should be. But I'm trying to do everything on automatic right now. I'm not trying to get too fancy. Putting the camera through its automatic paces and how user-friendly or dumb-friendly or idiot-proof it is for someone like me that's getting into YouTube and stuff and using the microphones with just the you plug and play kind of thing, which is kind of what I want. So I apologize if the audio is a little off. I did some test videos. It sounded okay, a little distorted at the end, but I think passable. Most of you are watching this on a phone, or if you get headphones on, I think it'll be okay. It's not, it's even like with the, and I'll get into this in another video with the podcast, because the way we do things on the Cantina Cast now is a little different than the audio that I typically do, where I'm very anal and controlling about that. I'm a little more flexible these days because I want to produce fast and get it out there and not spend so much time editing and getting all these crazy things to perfect. I'd rather get the content out there where it's passable, it's good, and get it out there. That's my philosophy. But anyway, more on that on the podcast video. And I've been peeking a few times there, so I apologize. If you don't know, peaking or clipping is when the bars on this go to the red, and that's not good. So I think that's going to do it. Thanks for tuning in. Oops, dropped my tamper. That's no good, can't have that. I'm going to finish my pipe, go inside and read my book, which has been pretty good. The philosophy on classical, I can't remember the name of it, but it just escapes me because I'm thinking of the serial killer at the moment, but it's been pretty good. I'm on the chapters with Aristotle and his contrast to to Plato, and how one's with the Utopia Society and the other one's with more of a, I guess, constitutional, if you will, the way they're reading it. Although it's not exactly what we think of constitutional, but it's pretty cool. It's fascinating. I'll kind of give my opinion about it once I'm done with it. It might take a little while. It's a lot to absorb. But that's the story, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.